But yeah, they're very packed. They have small quarters. Among themselves, they value loyalty, trust, and cooperation for the most part because they rely on each other. Without one another, they really could not survive. So the currency on the flotilla or in the migrant fleet does not exist. The only reason they have currency is whenever they need to get something from another planet or from the Citadel or something. But in the flotilla, there's no currency. The way that they get things is by trading or just whatever they don't need. They don't keep things that they don't need because there's no space to keep it. So whatever they don't need, they just put it in, let's say, like a thrift shop. They put it all there, and then someone that needs that stuff will just come and take it. And there's usually no disagreement there because it's not like they're stealing it. It's just that someone doesn't need it, so whoever wants it, go take it. They also tell a lot of stories on a ship, especially where you have a lot of like kids or something like that. You want to keep them kind of busy with something. So they tell a lot of stories. And they actually really respect dancers. I think because of the way that they're able to express themselves with no fear of anything. And since the Quarians are so constricted to one environment, they really can't do that. Another interesting thing, and is because of the size of the fleet, and because they can't really afford to have they can't really afford for the Quarian race to grow. They can't afford for it to shrink either, but not grow because they could barely hold everybody that's already on there. So each couple could only have one kid. That's it. You can't have any more kids. And if for any reason the Quarian race starts to go down, like let's say a bunch of them get killed or something like that, they do support couples that have more kids, and if they don't want to have kids, they actually give them incentives. So they'll like pay them to have kids if they don't want to. But that's the only case if the actual species starts to diminish. If they don't, then you can only have one kid. They also have what's called live ships, and these live ships are pretty big. They're one of the biggest ships in the flotilla. And what they have in there, I imagine it like a flying greenhouse. They grow food in there. That's where they have all their food. So if any of the live ships were to be attacked, they're in deep trouble. So those are highly, highly guarded, the live ships. And it's because that's their sustenance, that's their food. When it comes to their medicine, they take good care of their medicine, but they actually stockpile it instead of, using it every now and then. And they don't really need to use that much medicine because of the enviro suits that they're wearing. Quarians don't really get sick if they maintain their suit well. And they do. They almost always do this because of fear of, if they get a little infection, if they get a little flu, it's almost death to them. So it's like a huge deal to keep their enviro suit top notch. Make sure that there's no breaches in the suit, because if there's a little cut or anything where anything could get in, that could mean death for a Quarian. So they don't get sick that much. So they stockpile their medicine for big for emergencies, like let's say an outbreak or something. Also, when it comes to their captains, to the Quarians that are in charge of each ship, some people actually got this confused, and I was getting this a lot in the comments in one of my videos. The whole captain issue, how the Quarians referred to Shepard as a captain. A lot of people were thinking that was probably saying, oh, he's gonna be a captain in Mass Effect 3, because why were they calling him a captain? They do mention why they were calling him a captain in Mass Effect 2, actually. When one of the Quarians calls Commander Shepard a captain, he says, Captain Shepard, and Shepard says, I'm not a captain, or something like that. And the Quarian explains why they call them captains. I think it was the Quarian or either Tally or something. But it's because the Quarians refer to commanding officers as captains. That's what they call them. The commanding officer of a ship is a captain. There's nothing else. There's no other title for them. And this includes Quarian ships and non-Quarian ships. So that's why the Quarian calls Commander Shepard a captain, because it's like saying it to them. Captain means commanding a ship. So it's not so much a rank. Like let's say referring to a human on a ship. It could be a general, it could be an admiral, it could be a commander, it could be a captain that owns a ship. So it's more like a rank thing. But when it comes to the Quarians, it's just that's the name. That captain means commanding a ship. So that's why the Quarian calls Shepard captain. It's not really alluding to anything. It's just the way that the Quarians call commanding officers. The pilgrimage is, I always see it like, kind of like a coming of age type of thing or something like that. Like a sweet 16 or something, or like turning 18. That's how I see it. What that is when a Quarian is of age, they are sent out into the galaxy away from the flotilla on their own. They do give, the Quarians do give this other Quarian, this pilgrimage Quarian, everything that they need. They give them gifts, and they give them, things that they need to survive and all that. But the Quarian basically has to go off and do something for the flotilla. Anything that will benefit the flotilla. So they have to find something, either if it's something that they could take to them, or some kind of like really crazy amount of resources for it to benefit the flotilla, or do something. In Tally's case, it was helping out Shepard because it had to do with the Geth, with the whole Saren thing, and that was her pilgrimage. And once they're done with their pilgrimage, they could go back to the flotilla and actually not return to their ship that they left from, but go choose any ship on the flotilla to be a part of. So they choose whatever ship, and then they offer their gift to the captain of that ship, and the captain decides whether they accept them into their ship or not. And the reason why you can't go back to the ship that you left from, the ship that you were raised in, is because when it comes to breeding, and they kind of want to prevent as much as possible like incest, because you were born on that ship, and you're probably more likely of having family members in that ship. So they say choose another ship, anything but that one, so that you don't have a bunch of weird looking Quarians. This is where the whole name thing, the Quarian names could get kind of complicated, but it's actually very interesting to me. The names of the Quarians, they separate it from the name that you were given as an identifier, the name that you were given when you were born, and I'll use Tally as an example, and then an apostrophe. The apostrophe separates your birth, your actual like family name, like your last name, and then there's either Nar, and Nar means child of, so this means where you were born, and or Vas, and Vas means crew of. This is what ship you became a part of after your pilgrimage. And then the name of the ship. So that's why Tally's name in Mass Effect 1 is different from her name in Mass Effect 2. Because in Mass Effect 1, she was still on her pilgrimage. She wasn't done with the pilgrimage. So her ship was still the one that she was raised on. That's why her name was Tally apostrophe Zora Nar Raya. No, the Raya was the ship that she was born on. And then after her pilgrimage in Mass Effect 2, it changed to Tally apostrophe Zora Boss Nima, because that was the ship that she joined after her pilgrimage. And I just find that so interesting. I'm just like, oh, that's so cool. So you could tell whether a Quarian has completed their pilgrimage or not, just by looking at their name. And in some formal situations, like not very often, but sometimes, and I think Tally actually referred to herself as this once. They use both. She said her name was Tally Zora Bas Nima Naraya. It's like saying exactly who she is. But they don't really do that. They don't do that very often, but they can. And it's mostly like informal acquaintances. Quarian politics is also pretty interesting to me, because the flotilla operates under martial law. And what that means is that the captain of each ship basically could decide whatever the hell he wants. in any occasion. He could just say, you know what, we're in martial law. This is what I want to be done. Boom, that's it. But they try to keep it like a democratic system. Captains don't really they don't abuse martial law, so they abide by democratic politics. Okay, so I didn't want to use this damn camera, but I ended up having to because this stupid thing can't record for a long period of time because it like heats up or something, and then it just goes and it's just like, forget it, I'm not gonna work anymore. I'm not gonna do it. And you keep on pushing it to turn it on, and it's like, I'm not gonna turn it on. Oh well. So with the politics, it goes captain, and then the conclave. The conclave is actually representatives from each ship. So it's kind of like your civilian group, like democratic group. So that's the conclave, and they make the decisions like resources and food management and all that type of stuff. There's the Admiralty Board, and the Admiralty Board actually looks upon the conclave. So the Admiralty Board is what we saw in Mass Effect 2, the 5 admirals. They could override a decision of the conclave, but they don't really do that. They've only done it like 4 times, and the reason why they don't do that is because if they ever override a decision that the conclave does, all the 5 admirals and the Admiralty Board have to resign, or they'll be arrested by the military. So the reason why they do this, they do the whole resigning thing, is to keep the Admiralty Board in check, and so they're not constantly overriding the conclave. So the only reasons they leave the Admiralty Board to actually override the conclave is if the conclave is like putting the fleet in danger or making a mistake where the Quarian race is in danger. That's when they would do that. But just for whatever reason, because Joe Schmo didn't get his milk or something like that, they can't override, they can, but they would have to resign. The environmental suits of the Quarians actually do stand for something. Like when you get a suit when you're old enough, you're kind of like a teenager, I guess. You get your own suit because Tali mentioned in Mass Effect 2, when you're a baby, you're actually like in this bubble. That just sounds weird, but yeah, you're in a bubble, and so you get your suit when you're a little bit older. But when you come back from your pilgrimage, you get another suit that actually kind of represents that you're an adult now, and you can have it symbolize the ship that you're from and all that. So they do have significance. Their suits. They do support capital punishment, like Tali was saying, for things really bad, like mutiny or hijacking ships from the flotilla. That's execution completely. And other things, they could choose to exile a Quarian, like I was talking about. They'll just leave them on a planet, and you can't come back to the flotilla, but their offspring can. The minor punishments go from like almost like community service, where they do maintenance on the ships or something. The Quarian military is actually not that big. It's actually pretty small compared to the size of the flotilla. Like I was saying, there are 50,000 ships in the flotilla, and there are only a few hundred like actual soldiers. Like the military consists of like a few hundred warships. They have to patrol the whole entire flotilla. And I mean, it might sound like they're big, but they're actually not that big compared to the flotilla. So they're pretty strict when it comes to keeping the flotilla safe. They take no chances when it comes to a threat or a possible threat. They will shoot to kill because of the size of the flotilla and because of their size, because of the size of the military. They're not that big. So they have to be pretty hostile in situations. And that's one of the reasons why every Quarian that leaves the fleet, like let's say on a pilgrimage, they have a certain a statement that they have to say. And Tali said it in Mass Effect 2 when she was going back to the flotilla. You have to say, it's like a code that only the Quarians know. and if you say it, then that's like that gives you passage into the flotilla. But if you don't have the right passage, if you don't have the right saying, they'll shoot you and they'll kill you. If you don't give that code, then you're considered a threat.